Oh, guys, good, you hear? I am so excited. Guess what? I hope this isn't about your podcast again. Why, did you finally listen to it?
Da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da. The Groomer Next Door production. And now a message from our friends at Fetching Food.
The 1970s and 80s had Elbow, Gravy Train, Purina, Meow Mix, and Bell Bottoms. You've changed your clothes, now change how you feed your pet. Like Bell Bottoms, kick the kibble and join us in the 21st century with the healthiest diet for dogs and cats. Feed naturally, feed raw, feed Fetching Foods.
The Groomer Next Door podcast.
I got worms.
I beg your pardon?
That's what we're going to call it. I got worms. We're going to specialize in selling worm farms. You know, like ant farms.
Hello, Pups and Kittens, and welcome to another fun-filled and informative episode of The Groomer Next Door. I am your host, Chris Green, and this is Volume 2 of our insect-based diet series. Coming up this week, we have Brandon from Conscientious Cat. And I'm going to say that this entire process and this entire series is so interesting to me. I think it's so cool, and I love the fact that we're able to look at the science and find alternatives. What's cool about this whole process is that it's not only going to be something that we can feed our dogs and cats, but something that we also can consider in our own diet. So that always really kind of gets my whole brain going in all kinds of different directions. Let's go into this week's Fact of the Week. So, 2 billion people regularly eat insects in the world. And I'm going to throw in a little bit more. Insects are an excellent source of high-quality protein, up to 80%. Mealworms taste like roasted nuts. Locusts taste like shrimp. I personally would never know what shrimp tastes like because I'm allergic to shellfish. So I'll just have to take their word on it. Well, by that sound, Brandon is about to enter the podcast studio. So with that said, welcome Brandon from Conscientious Cat to the podcast.
Oh, hello. Hold on a sec. Dad, we have a guest on the podcast.
Alright, this week, on our second week of insect-based diet, we are joined by Brandon Keim with Conscientious Cat. And I am so excited to continue this conversation because I find it so intriguing. So thank you for being on the podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Chris.
You know, I immediately was drawn to this subject, and we were talking about it a little bit beforehand, because it's the sustainability and the fact that there's so much to the superfood, which I know it sounds weird that we're talking about bugs as a superfood, but it's weird to think about that, and yet it makes all the sense in the world. So my question is, tell us the origin story of Conscientious Cat, please.
So one afternoon several years ago, I had recently taken in another cat off the street. I was living in Brooklyn, New York at the time, and I went down to the neighborhood pet store, and it was this is a rapidly gentrifying neighborhood in Brooklyn, and it was a pet store that had a lot of fancy things, and I was kind of blown away just by the kaleidoscopic possibilities that were there on the food racks. So many different kinds of food, and so clearly marketed at every possible niche. But something that was actually really difficult to find was a food where I could feel really good about where the meat was coming from. Myself, I was not a vegetarian at the time, and I'd say right now I'm not truly a vegetarian either, but I don't eat much meat, and I try to make sure that it comes from a good place, and that's partly for ethical reasons and partly also for environmental reasons, and so just looking at these foods, I thought, geez, there's just not much there that you can, that you can say was really sustainable and ethical. And at the time, just coincidentally, the big United Nations report on entomophagy had just come out, and the idea of eating bugs was in the news quite a bit. My best friend and the co-founder that would become Conscientious Cat, Blessing Toowoomba, was in a sustainability master's class at Columbia University, and for her final year-end project, she was supposed to sort of do a mock-up of a business model, and so we were just kind of tossing around the ideas of what she could do, and we started talking about eating insects and cat food, and something that she wasn't entirely convinced that entomophagy would really become a common human dietary choice. And I think the jury's still out on that. I really hope it does. But I think it's a bit of an uphill battle. It doesn't say that hill can't be climbed. I mean, people always say, look at sushi, look at lobster, look at crustaceans, like we eat these things. But anyways, we were thinking, well, not so sure about people eating insects, but what about cats eating insects? Why couldn't insects be a part of the cat food? And so we kind of just started, just almost as a hypothetical for her class, putting together, what this would mean, researching the nutrient composition of insects, talking to veterinarians, talking to people in food regulation, just getting a sense of whether this is something that would even be possible. And the short answer is yes, it certainly could be possible, and that's how Conscientious Cat started.
Wow. And it's funny because everything has centered around this report. And if I'm not mistaken, I want to say 2013. I don't have my facts in front of me on that one, but I know it wasn't that long ago that this report came out, and it really is kind of odd because this is nothing new in other countries. It's just very new in United States, even Canada. It's still kind of new there. So it's really strange that all of a sudden, here we are, 2018, and we're now thinking, this has really become an idea, a big idea that we really should be examining, not only for our pets, but even for ourselves. A lot of sustainability here. So that's interesting. I always like to ask. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, just the fact that it's interesting is itself interesting because it's so, like I had mentioned, lobsters and the crustaceans we eat, and it kind of makes no sense at all that we should even think of eating insects as a weird thing when we so readily eat basically underwater bugs. And I know there's taxonomic differences, but they do belong to that same broad corner of the animal kingdom. And it's just such an odd thing. It's like, all right, historically, we're going to eat a tiny little piece of this kingdom that's underwater, and this is normal. But put them up in the air, and it's totally weird. But, yeah, I don't get it.
I never really thought of it that way because, I'm allergic to shellfish, so I've never been able to eat any of it. So, to me, the idea of eating lobster, being deadly, also is kind of it just doesn't really attract me. But I can see the correlations between a spider and a lobster, very, very common. That doesn't, you just kind of open my brain to that moment.
And I should actually also throw out there the safety disclaimer for what it's worth. There is a lot of research on the allergenicity of different insects, and especially of crickets, since that's one of the insects that people are producing in great quantities now, and it does seem, and don't quote me as a scientist on this, but from what I understand, a lot of the family of proteins
That is really interesting. That is something I have not heard yet. But see, that's kind of been the fun part about doing this series. I will actually check on that myself because that is interesting. I've never actually dove into the idea of actually eating any kind of bug yet. And if I am going to do it, it would be cricket powder so that I wouldn't have to see it because I'm probably too cowardly to actually go fear factor on anything. But I would actually do it on cricket powder, put it into some kind of dough where I could actually make like a bread type roll or something like that. So I will actually check into that one, and hopefully I'll have some information on episode 3 on that. So thank you for putting that in there. Alright, well, the next thing that I'm always curious about is their pet peeves. And what really gets underneath their skin. And obviously, I'm thinking that there might be something to do with pet food might be causing some of these pet peeves.
That's an interesting one. I might actually take this question in a really, really boring direction. I've got endless amounts of pet peeves in my day-to-day life. But as far as pet food goes, I will actually say that I went into this process really kind of prepared to be very distrusting of the pet food industry. Just because, to be honest, I'm kind of distrusting of the big industrial meat industry. And I just assumed that pet food would be kind of shady, and you can hop online and read a great deal about problems with batches of pet food or issues with really low grade meat being used, and I think those discussions are really complicated, and there's valid critiques there, and there's also valid defenses by the people who are making the food. But at the end of the day, what I really came away with was just a sense of awe, almost, that the pet food industry is as consistent as it is. And by and large, like, you walk down the street to your grocery store or your pet store, and you grab a big bag of pet food or a case of food or however your companion consumes it, and you can be really confident that they're not going to get sick, right? Like, and of course, like, there are those discussions about, there's too much grain in cat foods, there's filler, there's questions about, whether really the diets are as optimal as they could be, and so on, and I get that, and I respect that, but just the fact that so much food is produced and there's comparatively so little problems resulting from it, as soon as one starts thinking about actually producing food oneself, and it's like, oh crap, like, if I ever make a mistake, I could hurt somebody's beloved companion. But all of a sudden, like, the enormity of the safety challenge becomes very real, and that just makes the fact that pet food is consistently safe all the more impressive.
And it's funny because the more I do this and the more people I talk to all across the country and even Canada, we all tend to have a lot of things that we're very much in line with, and that is we don't trust big commercial farms. We don't really believe, for the most part, what big pet food is telling us. And we definitely see that there's a lot of shadiness going on in this. So it's interesting always to have these conversations because honestly, we're all on the same page, and we all got here at the same time, same places, same things got us here. And to even reference when you were saying how you're kind of a vegetarian, I can completely relate to it. I'm the same way, and that's the same thing. It's the ethical treatment of animals. If I'm going to say I love animals, I really can't say I love animals, but it's okay that a cow is slaughtered in an inhumane way, and that's what I like about Insect Base here is even down to when the crickets are coming to their end of their life cycle, which is 6 weeks, the ethical way of actually saying, okay, well, we're going to put you to sleep a very calming way. It's just so natural, and that's what I find to be the difference. And I'm starting to wonder, is this going to be the new norm? Are we going to shift away from eating more animal and go more into an insect base, even as humans? So we're talking about it as for pets as well, but is this really the new norm? Is this where we're going?
Well, I think in the end it'll come down to cost, right? And certainly the people who are promoting the lab-made meat will say that, well, actually, we're all going to be eating synthesized meat in the not too distant future, and I think that's something I haven't studied in depth, but I do get the sense that the energy inputs for it are really high, and I'm not yet completely sold that it's something that will scale up to mass production in a way that it is cost competitive with cheap meat. But I hope it does. That would be a great thing. The more the merrier. As far as insect goes, I think I think people will feel more comfortable at first feeding insects to their cats and to their dogs than maybe themselves. Although that could change quickly too. I gotta say, the first insects that I had, apart from the little bits and pieces of insects that are in food that we eat all the time, were crickets at a Mexican restaurant here in New York City. I'm visiting at the moment, and I kind of expected that I would be uncomfortable with it and gag a little bit, and that absolutely was not the case. Fry them up, put some sauce on them. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't really as big a deal as I thought it would be. And then later, I also, I'll buy cricket powder, some cricket flour sometimes, and substitute in bacon with it, and make chocolate chip cookies with cricket powder, which just feels a little weird conceptually, but as far as actually eating them, there's no difference at all. And yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what the reaction is. I get the sense that the industry still has big challenges in terms of getting a steady amount of cricket production. Not having swings in production, getting everything under control with disease and the various techniques that are necessary to really produce crickets at an industrial scale. And that's something else that's jumped out of the research to me, and I'm going to reference the research a lot because I'm actually in the middle of basically reading every single scientific paper I can find in the last few years about that's been published in this space, is how much variation there can be just based on tiny little differences in diet and temperature and housing conditions and what have you. And so I think, the big challenge to the industry is going to be, producing a lot of crickets inexpensively and hopefully getting away from using chicken feed as basically as cricket feed. I think that's I would love to know, what your other guest experience is looking at the food that crickets are being fed. certainly crickets are much more efficient than many other animals whom we eat. But feeding them, let's say, using fish meal as an ingredient in cricket food, it kind of defeats the purpose, right? If we're catching fish to feed the crickets, then some of the sustainability claims, I think, become more nuanced than they are now. But anyways, I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm just going to actually ramble on a little more because I like what you said about how just the fact that crickets can be raised and then killed in a humane way, and how much better that is than the really inhumane way that the vast majority of animals we consume presently are raised. In my day job, I'm a nature and science journalist, and a few years ago I did an article on, it was actually on a company that was developing a remote-controlled cockroach. You could attach electrodes to a cockroach and control him or her by remote. And I used that little news bit as kind of a jumping-off point for getting into, what we know about the minds of insects and what insects can think, can feel, and even a being as seemingly simple as a cricket, I think, does have something of a sense of self and does have the capacity for memories and emotions, and not, just absolutely not saying that like every cricket out there has a sense of self and memories and emotions like you and I do. I think those of the cricket are very different, but they're still developed enough that they warrant our moral concern, and we shouldn't be thoughtless about using them. That being said, I really do think it is possible for a cricket to live a cricket's best life in being raised for captivity for food. I would say, my conscience rests much easier eating insects than certainly pigs or cows or chickens.
And that's
or fish, too. Shouldn't be fish out of it.
See, I can still, to some degree, I can go with a chicken as long as I know it's cage-free and I know that it's humane. I'll put myself there. Now, I cannot, for the love of me, I cannot take the actual meat off of the bone. Like, that is something that there's no way. There is just no way. I cannot know anything was alive. And it's always been like that. And it's not until over the years to realize, oh, okay, I see why. That's why it was always triggered in there. But for me, it was like, now it's, oh, well, it wasn't in a terrible condition. Was the chicken coop all, gross and tight, and it wasn't humane? And so I totally can understand that one. But, with the sustainability and the fact that there's so much going on, I think that it's such an interesting topic to be in. And then, of course, now I'm still drawn to this, and this is where my shiny red ball moment comes in. I'm just thinking of a RC cockroach now, and that's just in my brain now. I'm for some reason drawn to that. I can't imagine why anybody would even want to do that, but that's me. Why anybody would even think about it, but the idea that there still has to be pain susceptors on even down to a cockroach, a cricket, whatever, they have to feel pain. There has to be some kind of neurological power supply to actually feel something. There has to be something to be able to tell it to move, to eat, to sleep, to poop, whatever. And for anybody to think that there's just no way that that's possible, it's kind of reckless thought process. The same thing goes with cows, pigs, chickens, fish. They feel, they have the same, it's just their brain capacity may not be of a human's, but it's still going to have a sense of life. So it always drives me nuts when people are like, no, it's fine. They don't need to have any of this. They're just animals. Brings the garbage out of me.
Absolutely, and I think it's so important to keep an open mind. The fish conversation has actually been really instructive, and until very recently it was thought that, or until very recently it was the scientific consensus and kind of the popular, the scientific consensus and the popular consensus that fish didn't feel pain. The when a fish is jerking around on your hook, that's what was called nociception. So it's an experience that is negative but doesn't have the sort of the emotional valence that makes pain for us. And this is something that really the scientific basis of that has been very much eroded in the last 5 or 10 years, and really the one of the big arguments is that fish just don't have the parts of the brain that in humans and in other mammals are responsible for processing pain. But now we understand that fish just use other parts of their brain to do something similar, which makes total sense. You're not going to spend hundreds of millions of years evolving on planet Earth into a pretty complex creature without some sense of pain, because pain is incredibly evolutionarily useful. And I think there's that same discussion, or the outlines of that discussion apply to insects too, where we think that insects, broadly speaking, that most insects don't feel pain as such. It's just nociception. But then you see studies of, there's been some really interesting studies of what seem to be emotions in honeybees and bumblebees, and all of a sudden the idea of insects having emotional aspects to their lives that would kind of elevate the experience of nociception to actual pain doesn't seem so far-fetched anymore. And so yeah, it's good to keep an open mind to that. And it just is common sense too when you look at the history of how we think about animals and how much that has changed just in the last 20 years or the last 100 years, and things that were just considered completely normal and unremarkable, like keeping a dog chained up for days and weeks and months at a time. 50 years ago, lots of people did that. It wasn't a big deal, and now we understand that it's just barbaric. And so, yeah, the things we take for granted and think of as normal in a few generations' time can be thought of very differently, and it's good for us to keep reminding ourselves of that.
Well, I always kind of go into that Jetson motto where we're supposed to be flying around in these hover cars, and even down to go to Back to the Future. I mean, the same thing. But we're talking about something that's actually nutritious and a good alternative. I understand that the science is still not completely in, and so that's where I do draw my of course, little bit of skepticism to the thought process of, well, since we don't really know, but it comes back. You've got all these big pet food companies using slaughterhouse waste, different ingredients that should never be in pet food, and the same thing can apply. We can put the same emphasis on our own food that has garbage, chemicals, etc., or even down to fast food. All of these things they're plaguing us as humans, are plaguing animals, and at record numbers. So thinking about an alternative and to sit down and say, hey, you know what, this is possible, is just, we've almost kind of lost that in just discussion. It's, well, that's barbaric, that's crazy, why would we ever eat bugs, why would we ever feed our dogs or cats bugs? Well, you know, let's think about this. What's the benefits? And, you know, I mean, we were talking about beforehand how we did a plant-based diet series where pretty much the same topic, but take away insects and add a plant-based only, take the meat out, or protein, however you want to, you know, classify this, and add in a plant-based. Now, with plant-based, the science is definitely up, but the sustainability, I don't think, is there right now. Now, that's not saying it can't be, it's just saying that there's definitely some needed additives that'll actually be holistic additives, not just put some chemicals in. But with where we're at with insect-based, they come with so much. I mean, one of the low points with the plant-based is protein levels are vastly low. Where you take a look at insect-based and they're extremely high. Superfood and crickets, absolutely. Same thing with mealworms, very high. And these are the two main insects that will be used in any kind of insect-based diet. And that's where I kind of draw my question, like, okay, we talked about going vegan completely with dog food, same thing with cats, which obviously, I get it, it's really not the smart way of going unless we have a lot of different ingredients to kind of bring the levels to where they should be. But now you look at the next, which can be classified as outrageous, could be crazy, could be anything, but sustainability's there. And that's where in your research, what would you say you've noticed about sustainability with anything insect-based?
Touch again on the just the variability that exists in production levels, depending on temperature and depending on rearing conditions and what have you. And I think the sustainability. So if it takes, let's say, sorry, I was terrible at math in school, and my co-founder, blessing Twangla, just walked in, so I got a little distracted. But there can be very high efficiency cricket production operations and low efficiency cricket production operations, and I think that require more food and more water and more energy to produce the same output at the end. And the trick is really going to be standardizing and optimizing the means of raising these animals. And and I'm pretty confident that it will happen. People would sometimes if you make the one-to-one comparison right now with chicken production in particular, crickets, it seems, they don't always win the one-to-one cricket versus chicken life cycle analysis. But then you also have to look at the fact that, the modern industrial chicken production system is so incredibly efficient, and that's also incredibly inhumane, and that inhumanity is part of the reason why it's so efficient. But people have been working on this night and day for a very long time, and I think when we see that that level of ingenuity and hopefully a lot more conscientiousness applied to the production of crickets, you'll see crickets becoming so much more efficient and so much more sustainable. And I should also say here, all of the discussion that we're having it's about, crickets in the case of Conscientious Cat is the insect that we focused on. And you mentioned mealworms as well, and soldier fly larvae or another up-and-coming insect. But those are just three of like a galaxy of possible insects, and they're the ones that, just through historical circumstance of, the insects we've domesticated, quote unquote, fairly early on. But, who knows, maybe 20 years from now, it could actually be some other insect that will turn out to be even more nutritious and more sustainable. And, there's some really interesting papers that, look at the basic nutrient composition, really across like whole families and genera of insects. And some of them are like just amazing. The palm weevil in particular, which is a kind of beetle that grows on palm trees. Like, I think the larvae, if I remember correctly, like there's something like 80% fat, right? It's just mind-blowing. And then they're like a different stage in their life. Like, I can't remember. They're like 50% fat and 50% protein. And I think I'm wrong about that. Don't like trust my numbers, but like just the gist of it. Like, it's like an incredibly nutrient dense insect. And right now, to the best of my knowledge, nobody's talking about growing them. But who knows? Maybe like we could. There's so many possibilities in insects.
And there's tens of thousands of insects that are being ate daily in other countries. And when you look at the health of the people, it probably started out as, well, this is all we can afford. It was probably a financial over a living condition, but they're thriving, and it's because they found the right ones. And again, you got a ton. It's, you think about a weekend starting off on a Friday night where people will go out to dinner. I can honestly, and I know it sounds ridiculous, and for people who are listening to this now, they're probably saying you're crazy, but who knows in the future when they listen. But, you had mentioned sushi bars. Look at how that didn't, everybody thought, who would ever eat raw fish? That's become huge. I honestly can see an insect bar actually opening up, and it will thrive. Whether it's in New York, whether it's in Los Angeles, whether it's in Miami, it doesn't matter. I would imagine it would have to open in a trendy, very open-minded community. And I could just see that becoming a super food where everybody's just going to be going right there. And then they're going to start saying, you know what, we will start moving this to be more of a ingredient, so to speak, used in different things, whether it's feeding farm animals, whether it's actually feeding fish, whether it's feeding dogs and cats. I can completely see this becoming a massive event. And again, as we record this, it's still very questionable, and a lot of people are like, they'll never happen. I personally, I can see this becoming a very big deal. So that's why I love the fact that you guys are getting in on this. And again, it's 2018. What I love about podcasts is people could be listening to this 10, 7, 5, whatever years from now, saying, well, this is just normal. This is exactly what we're living like. You're not telling us anything we haven't already done. But in reality, right now, in this time capsule of a period, it's still very questionable. And I think that's interesting, and that's what I love about this.
Have you thought about serving insects at your dog grooming business?
Well, because we only do grooming, we really don't do any kind of food itself. So, most of the
like the customers come in, they pick up their dog, maybe they grab a little snack. It's a little nice gesture for them. Just saying.
No, it's actually something that we've thought about. We've played around with a couple of different things where it was we tried different companies that would send us stuff, and we're like, we'll try it. We even tried a plant-based, and we're always open to that. A lot of pet parents, and especially where I'm at, they're still of the old kind of regime, where the current big pet food companies is still king, and their parents fed it, their parents fed it, and da-da-da-da. And so they are not willing to get on board yet. Now, when I was on the West Coast, that would be hugely different. A lot of pet parents bring in a little Ziploc with whatever treats are in there, and most of the time I cringe because I want to explain, what's in these pet treats, but there's only so much education you can do, and you have to wait till the person is willing to want to listen. But we have definitely offered different people, different pet parents who said, hey, we have a plant-based, or we have whatever. I mean, we've had multiple different things. We had sweet potato, we had, I'm trying to think of all of it. We've had all kinds of things that have been sent to us. And we're like, hey, you know what? We'll try it out. And a lot of the dogs, being that they're unfortunately of the big pet food type mentality, look at it and go, well, this is really strange. I'm not going to even get near it. So I'm like, hey, I'll try it. It's almost, again, like I always say, dogs and cats are just like 3-year-old children. And I treat them just as that. I treat them as children. And, you give a kid a fruit, and they're going to look at you and go, where's that candy bar? And that's kind of the way that I see dogs do it, too. It's like, no, you don't want the candy bar. You want the carrot. It doesn't always work out. But I do think that with, like I said, the whole origin of all of this came up was the cricket powder into a dog biscuit. I honestly can see where it would make a massive difference. And yes, when it becomes a possibility, yes. I've even thought about ordering some cricket powder, making up some dog biscuits, and just trying it out myself out of curiosity, because this is really interesting. Kind of a long answer.
Yeah, you should totally do that. I think especially, I get the sense just anecdotally that people feed snacks to dogs a great deal more than they do to cats. And I could be wrong about that, but I feel like every dog I've ever known, they're getting snacks all the time, whereas cats mostly just get, their regular meals. So that might be a great way for you to start opening people's minds and just have some fun playing around with it too. Because I think especially with, the nice thing about snacks is that, so in designing an insect-based cat food, we have to be concerned that a cat is going to be able to eat this food every single day indefinitely. And not encounter any health problems, make sure that, they're getting all the nutrients they need from it and so on. But if it's just a snack, you kind of don't have to worry as much, because, you're not expected to give, the animal everything they need to just eat a snack. And, I think also with dogs, the wonderful thing about omnivores is that they can eat so much, and I can't remember. I know I've looked at the research on what feral cats eat and what truly wild cats eat. The kind of the living relatives of domesticated cats, and there's, depending on the season and the circumstances, there can be quite a bit of insects they're actually consuming, and then that is absolutely the case with dogs. I don't know if you have any foxes or coyotes where you are, but every time I'll find a fox or coyote scat, I always like to take a stick and break it apart and just see what they're eating. And especially in the springtime and early summer when when the insects are really coming out in in great numbers, the scat will just be full of, iridescent beetle shells and other clearly insect matter. So they're eating this stuff. It's what they evolved to do.
It's funny because we did a rescue for this one cat that will never go out on for adoption. It's kind of an older cat, very set in its ways. Taught me a great deal because I've never had an indoor-outdoor cat. I never really, all of the fosters we ever have, all of our cats, whenever somebody adopts, they're always going to be an indoor cat. But this cat is very much indoor-outdoor. If it doesn't go outside, it's miserable, and it will let you know. But I decided one time, well, actually any time I'm out there, I watch this cat and in its behavior. And it's kind of funny to watch its other natural element, which honestly I think that this cat's more natural outside, but it has become very accustomed to being domesticated, at least our way. So when we first picked it up, it really didn't like the idea of being in the house. And of course we have other foster cats and our own cats and dogs, and didn't like that idea. Has warmed up to it. But when you watch this cat go outside, the first thing, and especially now that it's springtime, the first thing that this cat is going to look for is anything to hunt. And the first thing it's going to see to hunt is what? A bug. And what do they do when they catch it? They eat it. Same thing applies if you're actually at home. And for everybody who is home watching their cats like I do, it's winter time. Let's just, set the scene. It's winter, it's cold, and somehow a bug ends up still in the house. What does that cat want to do? It wants to hunt the bug. And what happens to that bug, whether it's a spider or whatnot? It eats it. And here we go back down to insect-based diet. It doesn't make them sick. It most likely actually gives them nutrients that their cat food would never be able to give them, because in that cat food it's rendered garbage, where that bug was completely holistic and organic. No chemicals in that bug. You just think about the process.
Which is yet another reason not to use pesticides anywhere.
Right.
Nobody should be using pesticides anywhere, because eventually that stuff just gets back into animals, maybe even your own.
And it's funny. I mean, I live in an area, I'm in the Midwest, so of course you're going to get all kinds of weird bugs. And yet, I don't have any pesticides outside, and I don't ever see anything come into the house. And if it does, well, the cats are going to have themselves a little snack, and they enjoy it. So let's get into Conscientious Cat, because of course that is why we're here. And let's start with, what are you actually looking to do in your campaign? Now, the campaign starts to actually get this off the ground, so let's talk about that and kind of understand that a little bit better.
Well, really the big step that we need to take is having the food designed in collaboration with pet food experts, and then submitting cricket as an ingredient to the regulatory bodies that are in charge of approving or not approving ingredients that are used in pet foods. And once that is done, we then need to come up with a way of testing the food ethically. Actually, I said once that's done, but I think as part of that process, we will be required, and we will absolutely want to conduct long-term studies demonstrating that the food is safe. Because of course, cats will eat bugs here and there, but actually feeding them a diet that's rich in insects for a long period of time is a different matter, and there could potentially be health problems that come out of that you wouldn't see when when they're just catching a moth or an ant here and there. So I think the ethical testing component is one that I find really fascinating, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about what new modern ways there are of testing the effects of food on animals, really in ways that respect the animals. And I think we can get a lot farther than we could 10 or 20 years ago with sort of benchtop digestion tests now, right? And sort of laboratory simulations of digestion. But at the end of the day, there still need to be the tests on animals, and kind of the question is, what sort of lives do those animals lead? How do you go about it, since they're not in a position to give informed consent in the way that a person can? How do you go about doing that testing in a way that is really done with their best interest in mind? So that's a little ways off. First we need to start producing the food in some volume and testing it. But that's something we're already thinking a lot about.
Don't mention my name to AFCO or FDA. They don't like me. They don't like me at all. And that's okay. It's a mutual thing. And, for anybody who actually is listening to this part, who actually know that story, I'm sure they're laughing absolutely to the point where they're slapping their knee. AFCO doesn't like me. That's because I called them out on their BS. So that's why please don't mention my name, because it ain't going to get you anywhere good. So how are you going to actually start your funding campaign for all of this? And what is needed?
Well, I need to finish my science review and just make sure that I know everything that is possible to know at this point. And then, we're going to be reaching out to the people who have already signed up to join this wonderful experiment, and looking for crowd-based funding for the early stages. I think it's important to us. We want this to be a community endeavor. We don't want this to be something where we're just getting a bunch of venture capital right away, and then we don't have the freedom to do things right in the way that we believe. So hopefully by the end of this year, people listening to this podcast will be able to help out.
Now it's June, so where do you actually project yourself to be right now?
I would say we're in our early stages. I would just leave it at that.
I know it's so hard. I mean, the hard part about science is that projections are almost impossible, because you can put item A with item B and you'll come up with item E. So the conclusions are never really there, and if you rush the study, you're going to miss something. So I can completely understand that. I'm still very much interested in all of this. It's just so crazy. So to look at the full year plan, at the entire year, what is the next steps? Where are we going from here?
It's really the petitioning the regulatory bodies and getting absolute certainty that the food is going to be completely safe.
Now, will it be a fresh kind of meal, pre-planned meal? Will it be a kibble? What will it be?
I think we're not sure about that yet. I think it really depends. I think there is some disagreement over whether kibble or wet food is healthiest for cats. My own cats, they do eat primarily wet food, and I would like it to be entirely wet food. But I know there's people whose opinion I respect greatly who also say, no, you can, really dry food is okay. So, it could turn out, let's say, that wet food is healthier, but dry food is easier to produce. And, or, can there be, are consumers going to actually take the step, let's say, of getting a dried food and then adding a little bit of water, so it's more like a wet food, and will cricket, will the insect ingredients remain contamination free for a much longer period of time in one state versus another? There's just so much that we need to learn, and really so many moving parts that go into producing something that's healthy at volume. So it's a long-winded way of saying we're not sure yet. We will find out as things progress.
One thing I've always enjoyed, don't get me wrong, I always enjoy seeing the development that's already from pre-production all the way to success. I enjoy those interviews, but you want to know the ones that I enjoy the most are these. These are my favorites because they're still in the development state. And I enjoy it because I really want to talk with people who have yet to actually achieve that high monarch of, okay, we made it, we're on top of it. I love it at this level because I don't feel like I'm bandwagoning. And I look at what you're doing and I'm like, look, this is something that I can honestly see being top of its industry. And that's always my favorite part of it all. I like to talk to you guys because, it's still in development. And you're still trying to figure out where you're going. It's a newborn, and I love that part. So, I geek out a little bit more when it comes to this stage and enjoy it and enjoy your parts, because you don't have that, we did this, we did that. It's like, I can't see the end of the story here. There's so much story to be had, and it's so much fun to be able to talk to you and hear it and just enjoy it so much. So thank you. I really appreciate all of this.
Thanks, Pam. I really appreciate that, and I really like the way you put that too. There's still so much story to be told,
and it's fun. We can all look at anything that's come full circle, and now they're just developing the next stage and how to keep themselves, relevant and fresh. But when you're looking at something that's really a canvas with a couple lines on it, that still, we don't know what the picture is going to completely come up to. It's cool. It's so much fun. And I guess part of me is, when I look at doing these episodes, I've been doing it for so long that at the beginning, only people I could have on were the ones who were still developing. And then as time went on, you're able to get the people who have already built these industries. And yeah, it's great and all, don't get me wrong, but this is all new science. I mean, that's what even kills me the most, to say it's 2018 and we're actually doing new science on insect base. I guess that bugs the garbage out of me, because I'm thinking to myself, it's 2018. We should be able to cure every disease out there and fly around on hover cars. Come on, what happened? And yet here you are, coming up with scientific ways of showing sustainability and dissecting it and being able to show that, okay, a cat can eat so much servings of cricket into its diet and it's going to XYZ in benefit. Where opposed to, cat A is eating predominantly dry kibble with, meat byproduct and suffers obesity and all these different problems, where same, cat B ends up eating insect base and is thriving. Same age, same everything. I love that. I think that that's the fun part of all of it.
Science is fun. And let's hope that in our not too distant future, when we really are all riding around on zero energy hovercrafts and have cured all the diseases that we really should have by now that cats will be eating crickets too.
I can honestly say it's a lot quicker, a lot sooner than us flying around on cars, unfortunately. I'm still waiting for my hoverboard, just like, Marty McFly had. Unfortunately, I don't have that yet, and nor do I have the sneakers that tie themselves. But the crickets and insect base seems like something that could be here a lot quicker than those two things. So that's kind of the way I look at it. And as long as you keep doing your research, we'll actually be there a lot sooner. I know it's sustainable in humans. Obviously, there's a little bit of challenges when you put in a feline or you put in a dog. Their anatomy is a lot different in some ways. So I'm sure that's very complexing in its own way.
It's, and again, you just want to be absolutely sure that this is safe. And, it would certainly be easier to get this stuff, onto the market much more quickly in a much more careless way. And, that's just not what we're going to do. So.
Well, you know what? We've all seen the careless way. That's what modern day big pet food is. There is alternatives out there, thankfully. I see that this is definitely something that is an alternative that has a lot more sustainability than other things. So, is there anything that we haven't covered that we should have actually talked about?
No, I think you touched all the bases. Those are excellent questions.
I always try, I try to line up the path that I'm going to take the best way, but I do forget things or miss things, and I'm always very open to know, hey, what did we miss? So again, let everybody know how they can actually help and join the campaign so that you can get a little bit of followers on that. Hopefully you get a good vast amount of followers and an army to help you guys get to where you need to go.
Yeah, you can find us at Conscientious Cat on Facebook or Kitty Eats Bugs on Twitter. And if you go to our webpage, conscientious.cat, please sign up for our mailing list, and then you will find out all about our progress. And when we're ready to go live with the crowdfunding, we will be in touch.
There you go, and it'll be in show notes, so you can look in the description for a lot more. Thank you for being on. I really appreciate you giving us so much insight and being able to, have this conversation, because if it wasn't for you, I'd be talking to myself, just saying, hey, bugs. Well,
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Well, I'm Chris Green. Have a pet-tastic week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, gotta go, it's my bedtime.